Blows for PNM government, PM Rowley during Labor Day rally. Vote them out. Fire BUN DEM, Oilfield Workers Trade Union, OWTU. President General Ansel Rowley places a photograph of Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley into a barrel to be burnt while performing his Calypso BUN DEM following his address at the annual Labor Day celebrations at Charlie King Junction, 5 Zabad, yesterday afternoon. Rowley must go, UNC, and vote them out were some of the chants that rang out from hundreds of workers at Charlie King Junction, 5 Zabad, yesterday, as they commemorated Labor Day. The chants came during an impassioned speech by Public Services Association, PSA, President Leroy Baptiste, who criticized the government and the People's National Movement, PNM, adding that members of the National Trade Union Movement should engage in meaningful discussions with the Opposition United National Congress, UNC. He said, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Who is the arch enemy of my enemy? I know you all afraid of that one. I am only asking the question, comrades. Therefore, comrades, who is our best friend in this struggle? This is not about who you like. This is about your survival. And if you do not care about yourself, you better start caring about your children and your grandchildren. Maybe some people are accustomed to abuse. Maybe we have grown accustomed to the abuse. The trade union movement cannot take 5 more years of this PNM administration," Baptiste said to the hundreds gathered to commemorate the anniversary of the Butler oilfield riots. He called for equality and justice for the country's workers. His address was interjected by the crowds chanting, "There is only one thing from this meeting," speaking as the PSA. "Do you agree that we should engage the UNC in meaningful discussions and negotiations?" Comrades, I know that hard because there are some people who never said UNC in their lives. I understand that. If we can't negotiate with this government, then we will negotiate with the next government. We hold within our hands the ability to make and or break any government of this country. Let us therefore engage directly with the next person. There is no one else, comrades. There is no one else who can help us remove the PNM in 2025, he said. As he spoke, several hundred workers chanted, "Rowley must go," referring to the Prime Minister. The rally preceded a yearly march leading from Avocat Junction to Charlie King Junction, which this year saw hundreds walking the length of the route. As they marched, members were accompanied by a heavy police presence. They chanted, danced, and sang songs. A voice over the loudspeaker called for a revolution of the mind. Members of trade unions, including the Oilfields Workers Trade Union, OWTU, Transport and Industrial Workers Union, Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association, TUT, Trinidad and Tobago National Nursing Association, TTNNA, Public Services Association, PSA, and others were present. Also present were several opposition MPs, including Oropouche East Member of Parliament Dr. Rudol Munilal, Couva South MP Rudranath Indar Singh, Pointe-à-Pierre MP David Lee, and 5 Zabad MP Dr. Lakram Bodo. The turnout was said to be the biggest since the COVID-19 pandemic. Addressing the crowds, Baptiste said society was nothing without workers. He said trade union members in Trinidad and Tobago were not being engaged in discussions by the government, and as a result, membership was suffering. He said members were disappointed by the current leadership. Do you know that public officials are asked to make life-changing choices and do not have the benefit of obtaining advice from their unions? Do you know when public officers approach the union, all we can tell them is we know because they have never engaged the union. They are refusing to meet with the union so these things can be settled and it will be binding upon them. It is because we have no choice but to be in court on behalf of our brothers and sisters. So let the records go back to him that we in 5 Zabad are disappointed and disgusted by the leadership of this PNM government, he said. He said he was renewing a call for reduced contract work for workers who should be permanently employed, having worked years in the same positions. Comrades, that is damn well wrong. That is exploitation of workers. If you are in a job of a continuous nature, you are deserving of a permanent job. Let the Prime Minister know. Our view will never change, he said. Baptiste said it was the government's responsibility to address the scourge of crime. Although blame has been placed on parents, poverty was an influential factor in crime, he said. As such, he said working-class parents ought to be given better wages. There is a correlation between poverty and crime. Therefore, if the government wants to impact crime, it must treat working-class issues. It must ensure that working-class parents have good-paying jobs and must ensure that working-class parents could afford a home to provide a shelter for their families, he said. Petrotrin Refinery Future. Baptiste was commended by Joint Trade Union Movement, JTUM, President General Ansel Roger, who said at the rally that few had the courage to address and deal with oppressors. He said the trade unions want to be rid of the current administration and put an end to contract employment and restructuring of state companies. Roger said the middle class had been completely eradicated and the citizens were being excessively taxed to compensate for a failure to improve revenue. Referring to the closure of the Petrotrin refinery, he said the OWTU would remain present in the refinery's future, regardless of the outcome. We are in the process of bidding, and they would have, through their people in Paria, asked us all the difficult questions and asked us to provide finance to how we are going to start and run the refinery. I want to report to you we have provided answers to every one of those questions that was asked. They closed the bidding process on May 10th, and they have 10 entities bidding for the refinery. This afternoon, let me say clearly, you see the oil industry in Trinidad and Tobago. This oil industry that was built on the back of the sweat and tears of our ancestors, who had to tote pipe in burning sun and the rain and all hours of the night, who had to work in that refinery to ensure that Trinidad and Tobago can put food on the table in earned revenue and foreign exchange. I want to say that the OWTU will not stand idly by and allow anybody to walk in here and take over that refinery, he said.